This is CJ Baker, and every day I listen to a different randomly generated album that appears in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. So I just finished my 11th week, and just like previous weeks, I'm recording a recap video. So the video will basically feature previous clips that I posted, but because these were posted as shorts, some of the videos may contain bonus content. So just like I did with other weeks, at the end of the video, I'll give my observations and I'll also share my updated rankings. And we'll also ask the question, do these albums this week deserve to be in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die? So if you want me to keep making these videos, please like and subscribe. And please enjoy. Today's randomly generated album is At San Quentin by Johnny Cash, released in 1969. So I am a huge Johnny Cash fan. And it's something that happened by accident. One year I was at the exhibition in Toronto, and it just happened that Johnny Cash was given a free concert at the CAD bandstand. I actually knew nothing about him. So I figured he's some washed up country singer, and I figured the concert was going to be really hokey, but it might be good for some giggles. But I was wrong, and basically afterwards I became a huge Johnny Cash fan, and almost immediately I bought the American Recording CD, so the first album that he did with Rick Rubin as part of his late career comeback. And then also I bought a Johnny Cash box set. But talking specifically about this album, this is the second of the prison albums that he did. So I followed at Folsom Prison. I prefer the Folsom Prison album, and the Folsom Prison album's probably more important and historically significant just on the basis of it being the first album. But this album is also an excellent album. It's partly notable because it does feature a couple of new songs that he performed. So he performed Starkville City Jail, which was about the night that he spent in a Mississippi prison, basically for breaking curfew and picking flowers. And in connection with that, he did have a humorous intro to the song during the performance. Then it also features the first performance of San Quentin, which was a song he specifically wrote for the occasion. And then the absolute highlight was his performance of Shel Silverstein's A Boy Named Sue, which is the first time he performed the song. And his version of the tune ended up becoming a massive hit. So I absolutely love the song. It's also a fun song to sing along to. Like in connection with this, I had friends who used to have like a place where they had like a soundproof basement, and they would do karaoke parties with a live band. It was fun fronting the band and singing the song, and would basically do like almost a cowpunk version of the song. But yeah, it was just really fun to sing along to. My name is Sue. How do you do? You're gonna die. So yeah, good times, fond memories. And one of the other highlights to the album was basically the stage banter in between. So definitely very humorous. And it also makes you appreciate how Johnny Cash, he connected with the prisoners, and he basically seen the humanity of those in prison. So just because individuals may have made bad choices in their life, it didn't make them less human. Prison reform was a cause that Johnny Cash was a vocal supporter of throughout his life. But yeah, absolute classic album. 5 stars. So today's randomly generated album is Abraxas by Santana, released in 1970. So this is the sophomore album by the Latin rock fusion band. And prior to listening to this, there was 3 songs I was already familiar with. They're a couple of Fleetwood Mac's Black Magic Woman. They're a couple of Tito Puente's Oi Como Va, which is an absolute banger and might be my favorite song on the album. And then there's the instrumental track Samba Pate, which translated basically means Samba for You. And that's a gorgeous tune. And there's a couple of other instrumental tracks on the album as well. Like, for example, the opening tune is instrumental, Singing Winds, Crying Beast. And it features like a really gorgeous, fantastic guitar solo by Carlos Santana. And Carlos Santana as a guitarist, he's absolutely fantastic. And his guitar work is a standout on a number of tunes on the album. And then the musicianship, just in general, it's just first class, very high level, very technically proficient. But what I do find, like on the opening track and a number of the other songs on the album, it almost gets too busy musically. So there's certain things that they're doing almost more because they could, not because they should. That being said, I don't want to be too critical of it because I think this is also the type of music that's supposed to be fairly spontaneous and in the moment, and you kind of just get into the groove. So I think for the most part, the album kind of accomplishes that feeling. It's just for me personally, it's just the type of music that it's easy for my mind to get distracted a bit and kind of lose my focus because musically it does just kind of meander. But overall, I still mostly enjoyed the album. Like it was a really good album and I'll give it 4 stars. Today's randomly generated album is Behaviour by the Pet Shop Boys, released in 1990. So this is the fourth album by the UK synth pop duo. They have songs that I don't hate, but I just never really got into them. But this is the first time I've listened to an entire album by them. But we'll get right into it. We'll have the opening track, Being Born. And one of the lyrics in the song is "Cause we're never being born," which I don't mind the song. It's kind of catchy, but the song is a bit long. It gets a bit repetitive. There are moments where it does border on being born. And I would say about the entire album, there's a few songs that are a little bit long, get a bit repetitive. And yes, at times, the band is being born. You guys are lying to me. But that being said, it's not a terrible album, and there's some highlights as well. Like the second song on the album, This Must Be the Place I Waited Years to Leave. So I like this song partly because it is a musical departure for them. Like it's less synth based and it's more guitar based. And it features guitars from Johnny Marrs, the guitarist of the Smiths. And it's just emotionally powerful too. It's by far my favorite track on the album. And another one of the highlights is How Can You Expect to Be Taken Seriously? So the song does have a bit of a dated arrangement that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's dated and cheesy kind of in a fun, playful way. So I actually don't mind the arrangement. And part of the reason why I enjoy the song, it's actually the lyrics. So the lyrics are satirical and cynical critique of 80s rock stars who would basically be involved in what I guess you could call performative, trendy activism. So they would basically support the cause of the moment. And Neil Tennant, the lead vocalist and main lyricist, he was basically cynical about the reasons for doing so. So basically, in his mind, there may have been a degree of clout chasing, and at times, maybe their involvement even trivialized this serious issue and maybe even unwittingly made things worse. So it is definitely an insightful social critique. As far as the rest of the songs goes, there's nothing on it that I hate. But as I already mentioned, there are times where the songs do get a bit repetitive, they drag a bit, and yeah, they do portal on being born. Overall, it's a decent album. I'll give it 3.5 stars. Today's randomly generated album is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie, released in 1972. So out of all of David Bowie's personas, Ziggy Stardust is probably my favorite. And this album could be described as a loose concept album about an alien rock star who came to Earth to try to save the planet. So the album has really strong bookends. It opens with 5 years, which is basically a mournful apocalyptic tune about how the Earth only has 5 years left. And like most good sci-fi, it touches upon contemporary issues, and it basically serves as a warning that if the current situation goes unchecked, then the future will be bleak. But it has a really strong bookends. Like the closing track is Rock and Roll Suicide. Also, really solid tune, excellent way to close the album. And there's a number of classic songs on the album. Like you got Stallman, classic tune. You got Ziggy Stardust. Ziggy plays guitar with weird and Gooey and the spiders from Mars. So yeah, absolute classic banger. And speaking of bangers, you got Suffragette City, also really strong too. But really, the album's all kill, no fill. And this is probably my favorite David Bowie album. Just an absolute masterpiece. Well, there's actually one thing I did forget to mention. Because I mentioned 5 years. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. But I also wanted to mention that the Cowboy Junkies do an excellent cover of that song as well. But yeah, this is basically the peak of David Bowie's creative genius. So yeah, absolute easy 5 stars. His randomly generated album is the self-titled third album by the Velvet Underground, released in 1969. Velvet Underground was a very important, influential band. Like they have to be considered one of the first alternative rock bands, way ahead of their time. And even considering their influence. There was the quote from Brian Eno, and there's a number of different loosely paraphrased variations of this quote. But basically, the gist of it was Lou Reed mentioned to Brian Eno how the first Velvet Underground album only sold about 30,000 copies. And then Eno made the statement every person who bought one of those 30,000 copies started a band. So yeah, extremely influential band. And I'm sure that first album at some point is going to come up in this exercise. Concerning this album, it has really strong bookends. It opens with Candy Says, very pretty tune. It features the vocals of bassist Doug Yule, who replaced John Cale. And even though I probably prefer Lou Reed over Doug Yule, he does do a good job with the vocals on that song. And then it closes with After Hours, the beautiful tune, which features the vocals of drummer Maureen Tucker. And similar to Meg Wright with the White Stripes, it's a shame that Tucker doesn't sing more, because she does really have a nice singing voice. So other highlights on the album, and there's a number of them, like the album's basically all pure, no fill, but I'd just like to mention a few of the highlights. What Goes On has a really punky energy to it, and the band basically is an important proto-punk band, like they helped influence the evolution of punk rock. Then we got Pale Blue Eyes, gorgeous tune, probably my favorite song on the album. Begin to See the Light, another absolute classic. I also love The Murder Mystery, which is like 9 minutes long. I'm not always a fan of long songs, but in this case, it works really well. There's a lot of different interesting things going on, both musically and vocally, and a lot of interesting changes in sound dynamics. It's almost like I would even describe it as more of a suite, because it's like multiple songs in one, but it's just a really compelling song to listen to. So yeah, this album, absolute masterpiece, easy 5 stars. Today's randomly generated album is Headquarters by the Monkees, released in 1967. So the Monkees are a band that at times were slagged for the fact that they were kind of like a Beatles knockoff, they were sometimes derisively referred to as the Prefab Four. So it's partly because the band were put together as part of an audition for a TV show. And there's also the fact that on the band's first few albums, they did not play their own instruments, they did not write their own songs. So, in connection with that, this album's pretty significant in the band's development because it is the first album where they did play their own instruments and they did write their own songs. And the band basically had to fight for that creative freedom. And as a result of that, prior to recording this album, they even fired their music supervisor, Don Kirshner. And Don Kirshner, his only real concern was having hits and selling records. So in his mind, why mess with a formula that was working? So now getting into the album, is the album any good? And it should be noted that none of the band's most well-known tunes appear on this album, but that doesn't mean the album's bad. And I'll just get that out of the way. It's not a bad album. Like, it has fairly good bookends. It opens strong with the song You Told Me, but the song is a little bit Beatles-esque, so unfortunately it probably doesn't help with the accusations of them kind of being a Beatles knockoff, but it is a solid tune, and it was written by Michael Nesmith, who out of all the members of the Monkees, he was the one that seemed to be the most upset about his lack of creative involvement, because prior to joining the Monkees, Nesmith, he was a serious musician and a serious songwriter. And we mentioned bookends, so it closes strong with Randy Scouse Get, which is a really strong tune. I would say it's my favorite song on the album. Probably my second favorite moment, which we'll get to in a few moments, but it's a really solid song, strong way to close the album. It follows the rest of the tunes on the album. There's nothing I hate that I would describe as bad, but the rest of the songs are, I'd say, mostly forgettable, and they kind of sound of its time. But there is one memorable moment. It's Jilch, which I don't know how you describe it because it's not really a song. It's like a 1 minute interlude, but it's just really fun and rocky. Yeah, it's notable also because it was sampled by Del, the Funky Homo Sapien, in his 1991 song, Mr. Dabalina. Zilch. Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina. Zilch. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have to cut out 2 minutes of me doing that because I just can't help myself. And that's just really catchy and fun and very irrelevant. Overall, not a bad album. I give it 3.5 stars. You have to give the band a lot of props for fighting for their creative freedom. So today's randomly generated album is the 1984 self-titled debut by Run-D.M.C. So I did not experience this album in real time, so fairly young when it came out. My first exposure was probably the music video with Aerosmith doing the reworking of It Rock This Way. I definitely went through a bit of a rap phase. I even went through a phase where I wanted to be a b-boy, but unfortunately I had absolutely no rhythm. And as a breakdancer, I basically made like Ray Gun look good. So at that age, I lived in an urban, more diverse area. But then once I got closer to my teen years, we moved to a suburban area. And then I started to get more into like alternative rock. But yeah, we'll get into this album. So it opens with Hard Times, which is a cover of Curtis Blow's song. So it's actually a socially conscious song, which is kind of an interesting point to keep in mind because Curtis Blow's version of this tune was a couple years before Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five's The Message, which was considered a landmark song in socially conscious rap music. So you could argue that Curtis Blow's version of this song, with the exception of like proto rap and jazz poets like Gil Scott Heron, would have been like the first socially conscious rap song. There's a number of other highlights on the album. So there's the song Rock Box, which features guitar by session musician Eddie Martinez. And this also shows where even on the debut album, Run-D.M.C incorporated rock into the sound, which they also did with the next album, King of Rock, on the title track, very rock focused. And then, of course, we mentioned already Rock This Way. It was like considered a landmark tune in the evolution of rap rock. So Run-D.M.C was always kind of a good bridge band for that. Both rock kids and rap kids could both get into. Then I'll highlight Jam Master Jay, which was a good display of turntablism. Then you got a song like Sucker MCs, which has some hard-hitting lyrics. Then another highlight is It's Like That, which is an absolute banger. And also, because it's absolute banger, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that there's some socially conscious lyrics in that song as well. Some of the other tracks on the album do fall a little bit flat, and the album does come across as dated at times. And even some of the songs I like are kind of dated, but those songs are at least dated in a fun, nostalgic way. But overall, still a really solid album, and it's definitely an important foundational album. So yes, I'll give the album 4 stars. So that concludes the weekly recap. So overall, not a bad week. I had 3 new 5-star albums, 2 4-star albums, and there was no albums below 3.5. So I might even say that this is probably the strongest week since I started this project. So we got the updated rankings here. So like I said, we got 3 new 5-star albums. So we got David Bowie, who's in the number 7 slot, Velvet Underground at number 9. Yeah, so the other 5-star album, Johnny Cash, in the number 13th slot. And we'll scroll down a bit. So we got the new 4-star albums. So Run-D.M.C at number 30, Santana at 33. And we can scroll down. We got a couple of new 3.5-star albums. So the Monkees in the 51 spot, Pet Shop Boys at 56, and then there was nothing below 3.5. So if we scroll to the bottom, No Chains, Gritty Politti, 1 star, still hate that album. Yeah, so those are the rankings. So we're now asked the question we asked every week. Do these albums deserve to be in the book, 1,001 albums you must hear before you die? As we mention every week, of course, that's hyperbole. You could choose not to listen to any of these albums, still live a perfectly happy life, unless you're just miserable SOB who's never happy. But basically what we're asking are these definitive, important albums. And I would say for the most part, I don't have an issue with any of these albums. Like obviously all 3 of my 5-star albums, absolute masterpiece, definitive albums. The 2 4-star albums, I think are both considered important foundational albums as well. Like for example, Run-D.M.C's self-titled debut, absolutely an important album in the evolution of rap music. The Santana album, I think very important in the development of like Latin rock and like fusion rock. Then even the 2 3.5-star albums, like we got the Monkees. I don't think that's necessarily a definitive important album, but it was an important album in the development for the Monkees because it was their first album where they wrote their own songs, played their own instrument. And I think the Monkees were an important pop cultural phenomena, so I don't have a problem with that album being included. And then we got the Pet Shop Boys. They had like 3 albums in the book. I don't know if they necessarily deserve to have 3 albums, but I do think they're an important synth pop band. So the fact that they have at least 1 album, and I'm not entirely sure if this is considered their most important album or not. So yeah, no major issues. So let me know in the comments what you think of the overall rankings, what you think of my reviews this week. Let me know if you think I'm an idiot, but do so in a respectful way. And also, if you want me to keep making these videos, please like and subscribe. And also, I do, like I said, on a daily basis, I record a video. So basically, I generally post them as shorts. So I also have a curated playlist that you can check out as well. And also feel free to check out my website. Let's get all the shameless plugs out of the way. Ongoing history of protest songs. com. So thanks for watching and please stay safe. Zilch!